So we're continuing to talk about equanimity, and this time equanimity in the context of developing concentration. So when the Buddha taught the Eightfold Noble Path, one of those, the last one, is concentration. So remember, that's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And then in the one of the suttas in the Pali Canon, he describes this right concentration, and he says, "And what, bhikkhus, is right concentration? Here, bhikkhus, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, a bhikkhu enters and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought and examination, with rapture and happiness born of seclusion. With the subsiding of thought and examination, he enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, and is without thought and examination, and has rapture and happiness born of concentration. With the fading away as well of rapture, he dwells equanimous and mindful and clearly comprehending. He experiences happiness with the body. He enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare he is equanimous, mindful, one who dwells happily. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous passing away of joy and displeasure, he enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and includes the purification of mindfulness by equanimity. This is called right concentration." And so there's a lot to understand about that, but just in terms of talking about the parts that relate to equanimity, it's kind of easy to get the gist of it. So basically there are different meditative concentration states, and there's the jhanas, which are in the form realm, and then there's the formless realm meditations. But the Buddha really more emphasized using the jhanas because they were more useful, because the formless realms, you're so absorbed that it's really hard to use that state of concentration, I think, with the part that relates to insight that we need to, use to analyze reality and free ourselves. So when he was teaching about the jhanas, we come with this equanimity when we get to the third jhana. And so what is happening there? So basically, there's a place in the second jhana where you're having the main things, main factors in your mind, or this rapture and bliss and one-pointedness. But it comes to a place where rapture is seen as not so desirable because it's kind of makes the mind too exhilarated. And so then the person decides to abandon rapture, and they focus their mind even more on their object. And when they're able, with this intention to abandon rapture, when they're able to strengthen their concentration enough, the rapture subsides. And then the third jhana dawns, so it comes into being. And so now rapture is more out of the picture, and you have equanimity now in the mind, and along with mindfulness and introspective awareness, and actually a kind of bliss that you're experiencing in your body. And so it sounds to me like this equanimity relates a lot to the mindfulness and introspective awareness from the way they write this. There's not like a defined equanimity. You're more inferring it from how they're describing the experience. But at any rate, now that you're free of this rapture, there's this bliss that's in the body. And then that becomes, the person realizes, well, that's actually kind of a hindrance too. It's kind of coarse, and it makes subtle attachment rise. And then they decided that a neutral feeling would be a better support for concentration rather than this bliss. And so then they, for a best support for equanimity is what it is. A neutral feeling would be the best support for equanimity. So then they decide they want to get rid of this blissful feeling, and they go ahead and work on that. And so when they do that, they actually are able to do that by making their faculties more strong, and the bliss fades away, and then they enter the fourth jhana. And what they say about that is now that the pleasure and pain have vanished, equanimity, which is far more peaceful than bliss, comes to the forefront. And by the firmness of equanimity, which is then pervading your mindfulness, you're able to purify, and you're able to be even more concentrated. And so the mind is, at that point, more dwelling in equanimity without even being disturbed by bliss. And so there in the fourth jhana, see if I can find this. Yeah, you're more having a neutral feeling. You're one-pointed. You're not you're in a place of neither pain or pleasure. There's this kind of purity of mindfulness, equanimity. Yeah, and so they say the mind is purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability. So that's quite a concentrated state. And so for myself, I love reading about these things because I think it's good to see the advantages of putting in the effort to work on concentration, and then being aware of where you might get caught, you know, because bliss sounds kind of nice, you know, so does rapture. And you might just stay there. And the Buddha actually had to, you know, intervene with some people and help them to see that, you know, this is quite nice, but it's not going to get you out of samsara. You know, you want to, when this ends, you know, and you go into your next life, well, you know, you haven't really made full use of having the ability to concentrate. So I think it's important for us to understand the teachings fully so that we don't kind of get caught in some dead ends. So that's really, I think, the value of learning a lot about these things that maybe we won't be doing in this life, but will plant the seeds of, I think, for me, inspiration to want to develop these capacities that we have, and then having a clear picture of what's the safe way to go.